Hello, welcome to this week's edition of Clinton Public Library's First Chapter. This week we'll be reading the first chapter from Halo the Flood. Now, for those of you that might not know, Halo the Flood is the novelization of the original first Halo game, Halo Combat Evolved, which will be receiving a remake here soon. It is currently in the works and will be released either later this year or early next year. Just to give you a bit of the plot synopsis here from the back. Having barely escaped the battle for Reach, the crew for the Pillar of Autumn is forced to make a jump into slipspace in hopes of evading the vast alien alliance hell-bent on wiping out humanity. But their destination brings them to an ancient mystery and an even greater struggle. In this far-flung corner of the universe floats a magnificently massive artificial ring world, a construct from a long-lost race. The humans' only hope of survival is to crash land on its surface and take the battle against the Covenant to the ground. But they soon discover that this enigmatic ring world is much more than it seems. Built 100,000 years ago by a civilization known as the Forerunners, this Halo is worshipped by the Covenant, a sacred artifact they hope will complete their religious quest for supposed transcendence. They will stop at nothing to control it. Engaged in a fierce ground battle, Master Chief and Cortana go deep into the Halo construct and uncover a dark secret. This enigmatic ring world is also the universe's most dangerous weapon. Its purpose? The destruction of all sentient life. For the Forerunners built the Halo to battle the universe's most vicious enemy. A virtually unstoppable and suddenly reawakened force known only as the Flood. The Pillar of Autumn shuddered as her Titanium A armor took a direct hit. Just another item in the Covenant's bottomless arsenal, Captain Jacob Keyes thought. Not a plasma torpedo, or we'd already be free-floating molecules. The warship had taken a beating from Covenant forces off Reach, and it was a miracle that the hull remained intact, and even more remarkable that they'd been able to make a jump into slipspace at all. "Status!" Keyes barked. "What just hit us?" "Covenant fighter, sir, Seraph class," the tactical officer, Lieutenant Hikawa, replied. Her porcelain features darkened. "Tricky bastard must have powered down and slipped past our sentry ships." A humorless grin tugged at Keyes' mouth. Hikawa was a first-rate tactical officer, ruthless in a fight. She seemed to take the Covenant fighter's pilot's actions as a personal insult. "Teach him a lesson, Lieutenant," he said. She nodded and tapped a series of orders into her panel, new orders for the Autumn's fighter squadron. A moment later, there was radio chatter as one of the Autumn's C-709 longsword fighters went after the Seraph, followed by a cheer as the tiny alien ship transformed into a momentary sun, complete with its own system of co-orbiting debris. Keyes wiped a trickle of sweat from his forehead. He checked his display. They'd reverted back into real space 20 minutes ago. 20 minutes, and the Covenant picket patrols had already found them and started shooting. He turned to the bridge's main viewport, a large transparent bubble slung beneath the Autumn's bow superstructure. A massive purple gas giant, Threshold, dominated the spectacular view. One of the longsword fighters glided past as it continued its patrol. When Keyes had been given command of the Pillar of Autumn, he'd been skeptical of the large domed viewport. "The Covenant are tough enough," he had argued to Vice Admiral Stanforth. "Why give them an easy shot into my bridge?" He'd lost the argument. Captains don't win debates with admirals, and in any case, there simply hadn't been enough time to armor the viewport. He had to admit, though, the view was almost worth the risk. Almost. He absently toyed with the pipe he habitually carried, lost in thought. It ran completely counter to his nature to slink around in the shadow of a gas giant. He respected the Covenant as a dangerous, deadly enemy, and hated them for their brutal savagery of human colonists and fellow soldiers alike. He had never feared them, however. Soldiers didn't hide from the enemy. They met them head-on. He moved back to the command station and activated his navigation suite. He plotted a course deeper in system and fed the data to Ensign Lavelle, the navigator. "Captain," he called, piped up. "Sensors paint a squadron of enemy fighters inbound. Looks like boarding craft are right behind them." "It was just a matter of time, Lieutenant," he sighed. "We can't hide here forever." The autumn seemed to glide out of the shadow cast by the gas giant and into bright sunlight. Keyes' eyes widened with surprise as the ship cleared the gas giant. He had expected to see a Covenant cruiser, Seraph fighters, or some other military threat. He hadn't expected to see the massive object floating at a Lagrange point between Threshold and its moon, Basis. The construct was enormous, a ring-shaped object that shimmered and glowed with reflected starlight, like a jewel lit from within. The outer surface was metallic and seemed to be engraved with deep geometric patterns. "Cortana," Captain Keyes said, "what is that?" A 30-centimeter high hologram faded into view above a small holopad near the captain's station. Cortana, the ship's powerful artificial intelligence, frowned as she activated the ship's long-range detection gear. Long lines of digits scrolled across the sensor displays and rippled the length of Cortana's body as well. "The ring is 10,000 kilometers in diameter," Cortana announced, "and 22.3 kilometers thick. Spectroscopic analysis is inconclusive, but patterns do not match any known Covenant materials, sir." Keyes nodded. The preliminary finding was interesting. Very interesting, since Covenant ships had already been present when the Autumn dropped out of slipspace and right into their laps. When he first saw the ring, Keyes had a sinking feeling that the structure was a large Covenant installation, one far beyond the scope of human engineering. The thought that the construct might also be Covenant engineering held some small comfort. It also made him nervous. Under intense pressure from enemy warships in the Epsilon Eridani system, the location of the UNSC's last major naval base, Reach, Cortana had been forced to launch a ship toward a random set of coordinates, a standard procedure to lead the Covenant forces away from Earth. Now it appeared that the men and women aboard the Pillar of Autumn had not succeeded in leaving their original pursuers behind. The Covenant had followed them here, whatever here was. Cortana aimed a long-range camera array at the ring, and a close-up snapped into focus. Keyes let out a long, slow whistle. The construct's inner surface was a mosaic of greens, blues, and browns, a trackless desert, jungles, glaciers, and oceans. Streaks of white clouds cast deep shadows on the terrain below. The ring rotated and brought a new feature into view, a tremendous hurricane forming over the surface of a large body of water. Equations again scrolled across the AI's semi-transparent body as she continued to evaluate the incoming data. "Captain," Cortana said, "the object is clearly artificial. There's a gravity field that controls the ring's spin and keeps the atmosphere inside. I can't say with 100% certainty, but it appears that the ring has an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere and Earth-normal gravity." Keyes raised an eyebrow. "If it's artificial, who the hell built it, and what in God's name is it?" Cortana processed the question for a full 3 seconds. "I don't know, sir." Regulations be damned, Keyes thought. He took out his pipe, used an old-fashioned match to light it, and produced a puff of fragrant smoke. The ring world shimmered on the status monitors. "Then we'd better find out." Sam Marcus rubbed his aching neck with hands that trembled with fatigue. The rush of adrenaline that had flooded him when he'd received Tech Chief Shepard's instructions had worn off. Now he just felt tired, strung out, and more than a little afraid. He shook his head to clear it and surveyed the small observation theater. Each cryostage bay was equipped with such a station, a central monitoring facility for hundreds of cryotubes the storage bays held. By shipboard standards, the Cryo 2 observation theater was large, but the proliferation of life sign monitors, diagnostic gauges, and computer terminals tied directly into the individual cryotubes stored below made the room seem cramped and uncomfortable. A chime sounded, and Sam's eyes swept across the status monitors. There was only one active cryotube in this bay, and its monitor pinged for his attention. He double-checked the main instrument panel, then keyed the intercom. "He's coming around, sir," he said. He turned around and looked at the observation window. Tech Chief Thom Shepard waved up at Sam from the floor of Cryostage Unit 2. "Good work, Sam," he called back. "Almost time to pop the seal." The status monitors continued to feed information to the observation theater. The subject's body temperature was approaching normal. At least, Sam assumed it was normal. He'd never awakened a Spartan before, and most of the chemicals had already been flushed out of his system. "He's in a REM cycle now, Chief," Sam called out. "And his brainwave activity shows he's dreaming. That means he's pretty much thawed. Shouldn't be long now." "Good," Shepard replied. "Keep an eye out on those neuro readings. We packed him in wearing his combat armor. There may be some feedback effects we need to watch out for." "Acknowledged." A red light winked to life on the security terminal, and a new series of codes flashed across the screen. "Wake up series standby. Security lock. Priority Alpha engaged. Cortana 10 Cryostore 2347. "What the hell?" Sam muttered. He keyed the bay intercom again. "Thom, there's something weird here. Some kind of security lockout from the bridge." "Acknowledged." There was a static spotted click as Shepard hard looped in the bridge channel. "Cryo 2 to bridge." "Go ahead, Cryo 2," a female voice replied, laced with the telltale warble of synthesized speech. "We're ready to pop the seal on our guest, Cortana," Shepard explained. "We need the security code," the AI finished. "Transmitting. Bridge out." Almost instantly, a new line of text scrolled across the security screen. "Unseal the hushed casket." Sam hit the execute command, the security lockout dropped away, and a countdown timer began marking time until the wake-up sequence should be completed. The soldier was coming around. Respiration was up, ditto his heart rate, as both returned to normal levels. "Here he is," Sam thought, "a real honest-to-God Spartan. Not just any Spartan, but maybe the last Spartan." The shipboard scuttlebutt said that the rest of them had bought the farm at Reach. Like his fellow techs, Sam had heard of the program, though he'd never seen an actual Spartan in person. In order to deal with increasing civil turmoil, the Colonial Military Administration had secretly launched Project Orion back in 2491. The purpose of the program was to develop super soldiers, who would receive special training and physical augmentation. The initial effort had been successful, and in 2517 a new group of Spartans, the 2 series, had been selected as the next generation of super soldier. The project had been intended to remain secret, but the Covenant War had changed everything. It was no secret that the human race was on the verge of defeat. The Covenant's ship and space technology were just too advanced. While humanity's forces could hold their own in a ground engagement, the Covenant would simply fall back into space and glass the entire planet from orbit. As the situation grew increasingly grim, the Admiralty was faced with the ugly prospect of fighting a two-front war, one against the Covenant in space, and another against the collapsing human society on the ground. The general public and the rank and file in the military needed a morale boost, so the existence of the Spartan 2 project was revealed. There were now successful heroes to rally behind, men and women who had taken the fight to the enemy and won several decisive battles. Even the Covenant seemed to fear the Spartans, except they were gone now. All but one, sacrificed to protect the human race from the Covenant and the very real possibility of extinction. Sam gazed on the soldier in front of him with something akin to awe. Here, about to rise as if from a grave, was a true hero. It was a moment to remember, and if he was lucky enough to survive, to tell his children about. It didn't make him any less afraid, however. If the stories were true, the man gradually regaining consciousness in the bay below was almost an alien, and certainly as dangerous as the Covenant. He was floating in the Never Never Land somewhere between cryo and full consciousness when a dream began. It was a familiar dream, a pleasant one, too, and one which had nothing to do with war. He was on Eridanus II, the colony world he'd been born on, long since destroyed by the Covenant. He heard laughter all around. A female voice called him by name, John. A moment later, arms held him, and he recognized the familiar scent of soap. The woman said something nice to him, and he wanted to say something nice in return, but the words wouldn't come. He tried to see her, tried to penetrate the haze that obscured her face, and was rewarded with the image of a woman with large eyes, a straight nose, and full lips. The picture wavered, indistinct, like a reflection in a pond. In an eye blink, the woman who held him transformed. Now she had dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and pale skin. He knew her name, Dr. Halsey. Dr. Catherine Halsey had selected him for the Spartan II project. While most believed that Spartans had been culled from the best of the UNSC military, only a handful of people knew the truth. Halsey's program involved the actual abduction of specially screened children. The children were flash cloned, which made duplicate clones prone to neurological disorders, and the clones covertly returned to the parents, who never suspected that their sons and daughters were duplicates. In many ways, Dr. Halsey was the only mother that he had ever known. But Dr. Halsey wasn't his mother, nor was the pale, semi-translucent image of Cortana that appeared to replace her. The dream changed. A dark, nebulous shape loomed behind the Mother Halsey Cortana figure. He didn't know what it was, but it was a threat. Of that, he was certain. His combat instincts kicked in, and adrenaline coursed through him. He quickly surveyed the area, some kind of playground, with high wooden poles, distinctly familiar, and decided on the best route to flank the new threat. He spied an assault rifle, a powerful MA-5B, nearby. If he placed himself between the woman and the threat, his armor could take the brunt of an attack, and he could return fire. He moved quickly, and the dark shape howled at him, a fierce and terrifying war cry. The beast was impossibly fast. It was on him in seconds. He grabbed the assault rifle and turned to open fire, and discovered to his horror that he couldn't lift the weapon. His arms were small, underdeveloped, his armor was gone, and his body was that of a 6-year-old child. He was powerless in the face of the threat. He roared back at the beast in rage and fear, angry not just at the threat, but at his own sudden powerlessness. The dream started to fade, and light began to appear in front of the Spartan's eyes. Vapor vented, swirled, and began to dissipate. A voice came, as if from a great distance. It was male and matter of fact. "Sorry for the quick thaw, Master Chief, but things are a bit hectic right now. The disorientation should pass quickly." A second voice welcomed him back, and it took the Spartan a moment to remember where he'd been prior to entering the cryotube. There had been a battle, a terrible battle, in which most, if not all, of his Spartan brothers and sisters had been killed. Men and women with whom he had been raised and trained since the age of 6, and who, unlike the dimly remembered woman of his dreams, constituted his real family. With the memory, plus subtle changes to the gas mix that filled his lungs, came strength. He flexed his stiff limbs. The Spartan heard the text say something about freezer burn, and pushed himself up and out of the cryotube's chilly embrace. "God in heaven," Sam whispered. The Spartan was huge, nearly 2.5 meters tall. Encased in pearlescent green battle armor, the man looked like a figure from mythology. Otherworldly and terrifying, Master Chief Spartan 117 stepped from his tube and surveyed the cryo bay. The mirrored visor on his helmet made him all the more fearsome, a faceless, impassive soldier built for destruction and death. Sam was glad that he was up here in the observation theater rather than down on the cryo chamber floor with the Spartan. He realized that Thom was waiting for diagnostic data. He checked the displays, neural pathways clear, no fluctuations in heartbeat or brain activity. He opened an intercom channel. "I'm bringing his health monitors online now." Sam watched as Thom led the Spartan to the various test stations in the bay, pitching in where he was required. In short order, the soldier's gear had been brought online, recharging shield system, real-time health monitors, targeting and optical systems all red and the green. The suit, codenamed Mjolnir armor, was a marvel of engineering, Sam had to admit. According to the specs he'd received, the suit's shell consisted of a multi-layered alloy of remarkable strength, a refractive coating that could disperse a fair amount of directed energy, a crystalline storage matrix that could support the same level of artificial intelligence usually reserved for a starship, and a layer of gel which conformed to the wearer's skin and functioned to regulate body temperature. Additional memory packets and signal conduits had been implanted into the Spartan's body, and 2 externally accessible input slots had been installed near the base of his skull. Taken together, the combined systems served to double his strength, enhance his already lightning-fast reflexes, and make it possible for him to navigate through the intricacies of any high-tech battlefield. There were substantial life support systems built into the Mjolnir gear. Most soldiers went into cryo naked, since covered skin generally reacted badly to the cryo process. Sam had once worn a bandage into the freezer and discovered the affected skin blistered and raw when he woke up. The Spartan skin must have hurt like hell, he realized. Through it all, though, the soldier remained quiet, simply nodding when asked questions or quietly complying with requests from Thom. It was eerie. He moved with mechanistic efficiency from one test to the next, like a robot. Cortana's voice rang from the ship-wide comm. Sensors show inbound Covenant boarding craft. Stand by to repel boarders. Sam felt a pang of fear and sorrow for the Covenant troops that would have to face this Spartan in combat. The neural interface, which linked the Master Chief to his Mjolnir armor, was working perfectly, and immediately fed data to his helmet's heads-up display on the inside surface of his visor. It felt good to move around, and the Master Chief quietly flexed his fingers. His skin itched and stung, a side effect of the cryo gases, but he quickly banished the pain from his awareness. He had long ago learned how to disassociate himself from the physical discomfort. He'd heard Cortana's announcement. The Covenant were on their way. Good. He scanned the room for weapons, but there was no arms locker present. The lack of weapons wasn't of great concern to him. He'd taken away weapons from Covenant soldiers before. The intercom crackled again. Bridge to Cryo 2. This is Captain Keyes. Send the Master Chief to the bridge immediately. One of the techs started to object, pointing out that more tests were required. When Keyes cut in, he said, "On the double, crewman," and the rating gave the only reply he could. "Aye, aye, sir." The tech chief turned and faced him. "We'll find weapons later." The Master Chief nodded and was about to move for the door when an explosion echoed through the cryo bay. The first blasts slammed into the observation theater's door with a noise that made Sam jump.